Live tonight from the virtual Richmond Raceway. We say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the round of 16 for the 2020 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by Boosted Playoffs. We're happy to have you with us on RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. We're alongside our producer Hugo Luis and Justin Prince. My name is Evan Pasoko as we say good evening and welcome to the second race of 3 on this round of 16. Coming off of a great playoff opener, Justin, at Darlington last week, where Mcbride played playoff spoiler, meaning that none of your 16 championship hopefuls are locked in to the round of 12. Certainly the likes of Ferdinage and others who started good are strong, but we have a great battle for that cut line coming into tonight.
Yes, indeed, and that race was so important for many of those competitors to get a good, strong start, because you have even one bad race in the playoffs. It likely puts you behind the 8 ball. So for a couple of those drivers below that top 12 cut line coming into tonight, they're going to need to be able to survive the potential attrition tonight. It's not an easy racetrack tonight, Evan. It's going to be one where you probably, if you're below, say, 11th spot, will likely need to win to try and make sure you are secure by the end of the night.
That's the big thing we talked about for this round, is that it's a short track round, and here's a look at your playoff standings coming into this evening. So Andrew Ferdinage leads the way. Again, he had a 15-point head start courtesy of 5 regular season race wins, but the objective after tonight and after Bristol next Monday is to be those top 12. So the drivers in the hot seat right now, Brett Mcbride, Daniel Scott, Kyle Kamer, and Jared Bogard, those are the drivers that all need to figure something out either here tonight or next week if they want to be able to get above the cut line, Justin. But if you remember to last week, there was a lot of extracurricular content as there was Jared Bogard and Bradley Burke were getting into it with each other quite a bit last week, and there has been some supplemental discipline. So Jared Bogard, one of your playoff 16 drivers, has been suspended for 3 races. Bradley Burke has been suspended for 2. So Jared Bogard, in effect, will be eliminated from the round of 16 and out as basically a 15-car battle.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of referring to during that broadcast, needing to keep yourself nice and cool, because if you do what you did in regards to Jared Bogard, of course, it's going to mean you're out of contention, absolutely, for one, for obvious reasons, but for 2, it can put you behind momentum-wise. It can put you behind in terms of mindset-wise. It wasn't a smart race whatsoever in that scenario. It's understandable that you have those suspensions in place because it was fairly clear-cut with the several different rounds that went off during that race. But for other drivers inside that red box, if they avoided 1 or 2 incidents, they're likely around 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. That's how tight the standings were after that race at Darlington. All the way from Davis, all the way down even to Kyle Kamer, separated by just about 13 points.
And right now, the drivers in their single-car qualifying session, about a couple of minutes away from going to the grid in this one. And, of course, you talk about avoiding incidents. Well, there's our calendar. Darlington. You talk about a tricky track to get this round of 16 kicked off with. Of course, over the weekend, we saw a natural caution-free race here in the NASCAR Cup Series. Not sure we'll be as fortunate here tonight. The short track racing on the sim can bring those chaotic moments. And then, of course, with Bristol next week, JP, none of these 2 weeks left on this round, I think, are safe for anybody. So they're going to have to be smart, but try to maximize points opportunities when they get them. This could be the toughest round of the postseason, and it comes right off of the bat.
Indeed, and it's not just because the track, which is a very rhythm-based racetrack, mind you, Evan, where if you miss your marks even by a little bit, you're likely getting freight trained to the bottom side. But as well, the track is on the cool side, so there's going to be a lot of grip, yes, but there's also going to be a lot of speed carried around. One of the main things as well, the longer the green flag runs go, the more that track temperature is going to skyrocket. Some of the drivers who took part, I should say, in some races just on Friday, mind you, seen that track temp skyrocket by 10 degrees in the span of 50 green flag laps. So it's a track that is going to get less grip as this race goes on. The setup itself as well is a bit more on the looser side. That's a good thing and a bad thing. Good thing as in, it's more driver focused. If you're good on corner exit and favoring the throttle, you're likely going to have a fun time. If you are accidentally mashing the gas even a split second on corner exit on the short run especially, and even more so in the long run, you're likely spinning off into the middle of the grass or taking cars with you into the inside walls. So it's going to be a race where attrition could come into play, pit strategy could come into play, as well as to potential loss of grip as the race progresses tonight.
In tonight's race, we're going to go at it for 175 laps of action. 3/4 mile racetrack means we're going at it for about 131 miles between the drop of the green and the checkered flag. And the checkered flag now flying on the qualifying session. You could see some tire marks at the grass. That was from practice earlier on this evening. And speaking of evening and talking about temperatures, practice started at sunset conditions. The sun is now ducked behind the grandstands, and we're going to be racing into the evening and under the lights here from Richmond. Let's go trackside. Take a look at your Race Spot TV starting grid, and on pole position it will be Andrew Ferdinage by 0.2 of a second. Beats out Joseph Tice for the pole position in this one. Tice going to go from P2 tonight, and Daniel Epperhart alongside Adam Benefiel going to make up row 2 in 3rd and 4th. Agnell Phillip and Kyle Kamer back on row number 3 with Scott Mcclendon 7th. They're at Mcbride in the number 8 position. Michael Laraya is 9th. Sam Nieto is 10th. And a reminder, Justin, those drivers highlighted in red are our playoff drivers.
Yes, indeed, and 2 of them start in row 6. In fact, Kyle Trudell and Grant Davis, 11th and 12th. There's also a big cluster of them overall. 5 total playoff drivers from 11th to 15th. Washington, Chambliss, and George round out those respective drivers. Ross Cato, 16th. Then rounding out the top 20, non-playoff drivers in John Fowler, Jonathan Cadell, Michael Kuczynski, and Gary Sexton in the Elliott Seller Esports machine.
And continuing on through a little bit of a smaller field, we expect that as we get into the playoffs, only 2 more times in queue for Tom Moreno and Eric Stanford, 21st and 22nd. The rest will be provisionals, but some big names. Dylan Jones, 23rd, your race winner from last week, looking to play spoiler again. Malik Ray will roll from 24th if he takes the green. You've also got Dane Cruz, Steve Durham, Daniel Scott, Steve Soa, Sean Kalist, Matt Mara, and Trevin Valderrama. That's a look top to bottom at your field in those top 31 cars. And it is red on the graphics. It is pink on the race cars. Look for those Boosted Club pink windshield banners, spoilers, and splitters for you to be able to identify who your playoff drivers are. Again, win and you are in to the round of 12. Let's talk one more time, JP, as we pace about Richmond Raceway. Talked about 3/4 mile racetrack, 14 degrees in the corners. But I think that the historically kind of chaotic moments we've seen here have been on the quarter entries here. It's a big wide arc in. Could it be tempting for some drivers to get to the inside? And it's short track racing after all. We saw tempers at Darlington. Who knows what we may see here tonight?
I'm expecting a lot of tempers here too, especially in some of the short runs, because it can be fairly difficult to pass with the amount of rhythm you need to be able to gather up, and the fact it takes up to 8 to 10 laps at minimum to try and set up some of the passes once you get 20 laps in on these tires. So it's not going to be an easy race whatsoever, to say the very least. And as we mentioned, track position is going to be key. One of the main things is tire equalization. At around 15 laps into a run, most of these drivers in a fixed setup are likely going to be near dead even on pace within just about a 10th or 2.
Your top 5 cars, all drivers in the fight for the Full Throttle Cup. And we will see how this plays out for them as we go nighttime short track racing here from the virtual Richmond Raceway. We say it as always, but we really are happy that you're joining us on a Monday night live on Race Spot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Pace car to the safety of pit load this time through, and the field is in the hands of Andrew Ferdinage, the championship favorite, as we say, let's go racing. It's the playoffs at Richmond. Early issues in the back for Thomas George, playoff driver with issues on his pedals. He threw away, but a dozen spots on the back straightaway. He's back going now. as Ferdinage Justin leads lap 1.
I believe he had a similar issue, in fact, last week. That is absolutely huge for George. It took him about an extra few minutes to get his gas pedal back going all the way to the back of the field. But Ferdinage is already checked out. Epperhart's checked out. It's going to get intense, though, right on back behind them with Tice, Benefield, and several others looking to scrap.
Yeah, we saw a big slide from Kyle Kamer a lap ago. That cost him a spot as the 5 of Rhett Mcbride was able to get on through. So that's a swap for position inside of the top 10. Some side-by-side, a little bit further back down the running order. It is with Kamer still, now trying to fight off the number 44 machine as he's engrossed in battle with Michael Loriah. Trying to get down to the bottom. You're looking at Joseph Tice, though, in third. He's watching first and second. Pull away just a little bit here off of the get-go, and much more chaos back in the pack, further back, as you see Ferdinage 1, Epperhart 2, trying to pull some distance.
And I'm not quite worried if you're Joseph Tice quite yet, because at the very least you expect some attrition to come into play. So just save your tires now and think big picture. It's also the fact that it's a little difficult on corner exit, as you've seen with some of the bobbles. So you don't want to just try and mash the gas on corner exit and hope, okay, I hope I can make it stick.
Made an early pass on him on that opening lap. You can see Benefield and big single file train about 7th on back and 6th on back as well. Justin Mcbride and friends 6th on through. The rest of the running order are all kind of stacked up to one another. You're going to see these groups of race cars kind of stick on one another as the night goes on. But the way that it looks now is a calm enough start for these drivers to get their bearings underneath one another and just try to get through this thing.
Slow and steady. Just wait for your chances right there. If someone can force someone up to the top line, that can open up the door for you to try and make moves. You don't want to necessarily try and dive bomb your way in and cause an incident. So smart driving by these cars, just waiting for a chance to get a run, and try and freight train cars like this. Mcbride, though, is going to need to find a hole in quickly, though, if he doesn't want to drop out to the back of this line.
And on board there with the Loriah, seeing his dive down to the inside. So it's going to get the 5 of Mcbride stuck up on the outside of the racetrack. But a caution flag is out early here from Richmond. There's a lot of smoke down in turn number 2. And I believe it was contact between Malik Ray and John Fowler. There's some communication between those two, and there it is. There's the contact. Immediately apologized it over the radio. Justin was Malik. Fowler was up the road in a battle of his own with the number 24 car, Grant Davis. Slowed him down a little bit, and on that second look, you saw Malik Ray go to the inside. Just a bit of contact as Fowler tried to come down the hill. They actually straightened it out pretty quickly, but it was enough to trigger an early yellow.
Yeah, Ray was trying to center a little bit deeper on the brakes and was going to say, seeing some of the racing he's done at Richmond, he has the tendency to go a little bit deeper than some of these competitors that were around him in the mid-pack. The downside, if you're Malik Ray, is he's got significant nose damage, so if he keeps on going on, it's going to hurt him in terms of potential temps and speed as this race goes on.
And no takers for pit road early at the front of the field. A lot of drivers at the back opting to come in. Looks like we have Dylan Jones, Malik Ray, Dane Cruz, Tom Morano, Steve Soa, Trevin Valderrama down to the pit lane. Very early trip down for a lot of these cars, which I'm expecting it to just be fuel only, because the biggest change that we've seen to this championship mid-series, is there's a look from atop the pit box as those drivers get their service in and out, Justin, is that these drivers are limited to 3 additional sets of tires down pit road, and you do not want to burn up one of those. Would it be better to get 10-lap fresher tires? Sure. You cannot be burning up one of 3 sets with a race that still has 164 laps to go.
Even then, I don't know if it's enough straight up to just be able to drive right up towards the front in just the span of a few laps, obviously. just the amount of equalization has just been proven so far in the fixed setup, at least, that it's near identical times within 15 laps of tire difference. It's just going to be quicker on the short run. So they're going to have their work cut out for them. But here's the counterpart of it, Evan. If we get an error caution precaution, say a 5-6 lap run, wouldn't be surprised to see them then stay out and in turn become the race leader. So it's a call that they're hoping there's an error caution within maybe 10 laps.
And you're able to extend yourself just a little bit on fuel. I don't think that's going to be a difference maker quite, but I mean, if we get this restart with about 15 laps behind us, what are we looking at as far as fuel strategy wise and kind of fuel economy?
Good question, because the fuel, you can't stretch to 110 laps, so keep that in mind. But at the same time, it's been kind of difficult to time up when you want a green flag run, or a green flag stops rather, because you never know if you're going to get a caution flag. You take a pit stop during the green flag runs, you're losing 2 laps. Meaning if you then have a caution a couple laps later, you're pinned for the rest of the race likely. So in other words, the strategy likely one of 2 things. Split it, try and stretch as long as you can on the fuel and then time it up from there. Or you're hoping that there's going to be a caution to make sure you can make it on fuel.
So a couple of different options as we come to the first restart of the race. Going to put lap number 14 behind us with 161 still to go on the board. Green flag flies. We're back underway. Easy does it for Ferdinage, but Daniel Epperhart's able to hold on to second.
Very clean start indeed, and already Philip, who is one of the quickest drivers in practice, an impressive job by him so far on the 94. Still trying to hold on strong to the outside. One of the highest running drivers. In fact, he's your highest running non-playoff driver in the field at the moment.
And that's the key. We talked a lot about Mcbride, who was involved in that incident, trying to come through the field to play spoiler. Well, any of these drivers have the opportunity to do so, and for Agno Phillip, up 1 for the get-going to 94, one of the drivers who has been very impressive in the starts that he's made for 2020, but he's one of about a half a dozen drivers that we've seen here and there over the course of this season that weren't able to commit to a full calendar this year to be able to fight for the championship, but wanted to get a couple of starts in kind of as a prerequisite to get their feet wet before they fight for the Full Throttle Cup in 2021. So that's the key for him and how he factors into all of this as he rides again between Benefield 4th, Mcbride P6, up front, top 2. Pull it away. You're on board with David Washington.
You can just hear a little bit the throttle control that David Washington is trying to have on these corner exits to make sure he doesn't snap the car around or cook the right rear tire. Just needs to slowly make marginal gains. You can cane sometime, yes, on break point entry, but if you send it too hard, you're likely either sending the car spinning or pushing up the track. So Washington nice and careful throughout this run. And already trouble in front of him.
Oh, it's a spinner into the outside wall, and it is Rhett Mcbride. Mcbride brings the second yellow of the night out. He was not happy after he dealt with a lot of the non-playoff drivers at Darlington. And tonight, it is another non-playoff driver. This time, it's contact with Scott Mcclendon. There it is.
And over the radio, I think Mcclendon said he was already committed to that and did leave the door open for the set, but at the same time, Mcbride just not able to lock up the brakes in time to try and avoid slamming the wall as hard there. See it right there. Leaves the door open on the entry. Mcclendon tries to take it. Mcbride just comes across the front nose in a hard hit. Just before the wall, I think, is right where he tried to hit against the brakes.
If there's any benefit for Rhett, it's that he came into tonight 22 points above the cut line, but like I said, the way that both of the opening rounds of this postseason have gone for him, he is not going to be happy. And I mean, that's just a touch, Justin, but compared to the last incident we saw, that is a huge bit of contact.
Yeah, that's likely going to be significant damage there, depending on how hard the hit is. I'd be concerned if it's motor damage, more so if I'm Rhett Mcbride, because it can hurt you more so in the long run in terms of straight line speed in this race. But the question's going to be, too, did the caution come with enough green flag laps to entice any of the cars up at the front to pit? Answer's still looking to be no for the time being, for the most part.
I thought maybe at least some of them would have faked to see what the rest of the field was thinking, but you can see pit lane entrance there in the set of 3 and 4. suggests that no, nobody enticed to the pit lane quite yet in this race, so they have a bit of time until they have to worry about that. One thing as we pace here, and all the virtual fans are enjoying a good look at all these good-looking race cars, Justin, with all the flash bulbs going off in the stands, that's rarely talked about here at Richmond, that I was reminded of just by watching the racing here over the weekend, is how skewed to turn 4 the start-finish line is. You know, when you're driving the race car, you may not notice it as much, but it almost feels like it's, you know, 2/3 of the way down to 4 that it would be in the center, you know, where that start-finish line normally is. I just think it's funny that we always talk so much about, you know, how that difference is at Talladega, but rarely it's mentioned here at Richmond, but very unique in where that start-finish line is compared to the rest of the field. It is a, you know, very short run out of 4 and then a long run down to 1.
And it's led to some exciting finishes. Thinking back to some of the racetracks, like in the early 2000s, there were some exciting finishes for the NASCAR Xfinity Series here. It just, again, emphasizes, especially if it comes down to it, the importance of turn 4 exit. You mess up that corner, you're likely losing the race or losing 1 or 2 spots at the checkered flag. So expecting a lot of drivers to be careful there and or try and place their timing right to make sure they build up enough of a run to where they're side by side by that stripe and complete the pass by turn 1. Here we go.
23 laps down, it's Andrew Ferdinage in control once more. Green flag flies back underway, and a handful of battles. Ferdinage clears Epperhart for the lead. We're side by side for third. Tice on the inside, but here comes Adam Benefield. He'll squeeze at the exit at 2 and move Benefield to a race-high P3.
Not surprised to see Benefield doing well so far. Of course, picked up those logos from his fellow technical alliance mate from Team Conti. Looking very quick so far. The question's going to be, how long will it take for him to try and reel in the 90 and the 88? We'll have to wait and see, as Mcclendon is just getting freight trained with all of this as he's been shuffled to the top.
He is not doing a good job up at the outside of the racetrack, still in the green from where he started, but for how much longer? Agnell Phillip was able to get around on the inside, and you can see now slicing to the low side across the nose of the 8 Kyle Cameron to stay in front of him, and Mcclendon and Phillip now running 5th and 6th, the highest running non-playoff drivers, as you see David Washington on the prowl. He'll go to the inside of Kyle Trudell, take that spot away. Washington up another, that's +5 to P8.
One of your biggest movers, in fact, Cadell's a +5 and Gary Sexton a +8 in this race. So when you have the speed and the talent, you can gain up spots. As long as you have the confidence in the braking entry points. That's what they've had so far, and that's what's all helped them try and move on forward. Compared to that, the drivers like Trudell, they're dropping like lead balloons, unfortunately, some of these cars, where they just need to find a hole on the bottom side, or else this is going to continue to lose them more and more time on the racetrack.
Yeah, Trudell probably wasn't much off in that fight with Washington. He was actually able to pull back on him, but you can see now just tucking in line in front of Sam Nieto, who you ride on board with. Trudell ends up losing 2 spots, with Lariah able to pass to the bottom just because that 7 really wasn't able to do anything with that outside, and that's kind of the tricky challenge that you have at racetracks that aren't progressively banked, is you are going to be way down and on that inside preferred lane. It's a racetrack to leads to contact, where drivers are diving to the inside, in which the case we've seen in both yellow flags so far to this point. Washington looking, though. There's a dive to the inside. We'll fight for 7th, and nice and smooth for the 98. David Washington, book it.
Yeah, him and his friends Epperhart and Ferdinage, lightning quick already. Just seem to be good on corner entry. And he is nailing, I think, the corner exit faster and better than anyone else outside of the top 3 cars at this moment. Just seems nice and dialed in, not pressing the gas too much, not flickering the gas, so to speak, to full throttle to snap it around. Just able to get better corner exit speed because of how careful he's been on the throttle.
And you can see there's top to him, he continuing to pull away, but Granted, we haven't had a really long run yet in this race, only working lap number 32, but it feels like we're not really going to be seeing, this mid-pack here kind of settle down. If we're going to have chaos, this is where it's going to be with Daniel Epperhart and Andrew Ferdinage. 1-2 of Ferdinage. They're running low 22s. In the best lap of the race, in fact, in favor of Epperhart with a 21.303. So he definitely has the speed. The challenge, the question is, can you stick with the 88 on a long run? And after kind of a characteristic or uncharacteristically bit of an off night at Darlington, not that Ferdinage didn't have good speed, but he didn't have, Andrew Ferdinage speed that we're used to seeing. Maybe the Donnie machine sees a kink in the armor and something he can fight after.
And Epperhart's really improved this season, especially on the 1.5 mile tracks, where he's struggling at first with that new package, if you remember back towards the spring. He's now lightning quick on these tracks, but here's the benefit for Ferdinage. He loves this 750 horsepower low downforce package that's run on the short tracks. Loves the way you have to drive the car with it, loves the way he's able to save the tires with it, and in turn, it's going to make it more difficult to keep up with him. This was partly why we've seen him so dominant, remember, back in 2018 even. With this respective type of package, it's going to be not easy for Epperhart to keep up, I don't think, especially in about 20-30 laps from now if the tires continue to go off like I think they may be. They're now been out, by the way, to the 22.1s to 22.3s in the pack.
And this is now the longest green flag run of this race. We haven't seen any of your race leaders come down to the pit lane for service yet. Again, a year ago, we probably would have seen that at least once, if not twice by this point. But with the limited amount of tires available, these drivers are forced to be a little bit more conservative, and I love it. I think it's one of the best additions that we've seen come to the iRacing service since we finally got gray to white checkered and overtime functionality, which, as in every Monday night race, is in tonight. Up to 3 attempts at overtime should it be necessary a little bit later. But here's David Washington. He's been on the attack for so long, but he may have to play some defense because Scott Mcclendon, who did get passed up a little bit ago by Tyson Washington, passed both of them, and the 22 dropped back, but he doesn't seem to want to give this one up. I think that fight back going to die a little bit here, and Washington will safely now run in the number 6 position, making him now a +7 from the start. And don't look now, of course, you can see that full running order on top of your screen, but Malik Ray up to 13th position. Again, your race winner from Darlington, I think a 3 or 4 time race winner this season. Obviously has as good a chance as anybody else with a little bit of that right front damage from the contact. How realistic of it is it for the 51 car to maybe go through the field here tonight?
Well, you can kind of get away with some damage here, Evan, depending on how significant it is. With how it is, he's getting away with it a little bit. It's going to affect him in terms of some of the aero just a touch, but not enough to where it's going to kill you on the short track. The thing is, though, if you've got the talent, you can move through the field, and that's what Ray's done with how deep he's going on the entry without cooking up the tire or pushing up the track by apex. He's also using that flat line while the others are going with the double apex line. It was talked about a bit, if you remember back to the springtime at the Coke race, where on that flatter line, you're able to protect a little bit more, can send it a little bit more deeper in turn, and as well try and launch it off the corner exit. That's what he's trying to do, while the others are trying to arc it on down, and that's losing all those cars in the group in front of him some time as Kamer's up the hill.
And Cameron, the 8 machine, up and out of the groove, looking to the inside. Was Trudell that time not going to happen? And Cameron, of course, in those always recognizable colors after he actually made contact with a 44 as it was a pass by Lariah. So they just touched a little bit when the 44 got around him. It looked like the 8 almost tried to tuck in line a little bit too soon, and it was just a miscommunication between those two drivers. They're actually talking right now over the radio, and doesn't appear to be any hurt feelings besides maybe just a bit of bench sheet metal. And there's a big slot again. Sam Nieto in the 2 car was kind of way out of control there as he fights now with Gary Sexton. Malik Ray in the fight. Let's go a 3-way battle as Ray to the inside. He'll take P12.
And that was Sexton who hit him in the back end, just mistimed his braking mark. And that's the thing when it comes to low downforce versus high downforce here at Richmond. You used to be able to send it at least an hour 10, 15 feet deeper last year. This year, you have to really back up the corner else you have contact such as that. Sexton just mistimed it out, sending Nieto up the hill, and Ray just able to take advantage again. Keep in mind, Ray's the only driver inside the top 20 with who hit the last caution flag, who is inside this respective grouping. Everyone else 21st on back, I should rather say.
Yeah, he was on pit road on that first, I believe, yellow flag of this race, because he's been out there for 34 laps since then. And of course, I think the 51 machine, it was just a bit of fuel. Don't think he went for tires at that point. But yeah, he's trying to, I mean, if this goes green, it could give him a little bit more flexibility. You talked about how far we can go on fuel. It doesn't make this race really a nail biter in the fuel sense, but certainly on tires is, I think, more so the dictating factor. And I think the yellow is helping everybody out by having cooled these things down. As up the road, Sam Nieto diving to the inside, passing Throttle, and Mcbride drove it so deep into turn 1 that he'll stay side by side with the 7, and he'll make a pass of his own. So Mcbride now to P11, and I'm sure Nieto not that far away either.
He and some of his technical alliance mates are almost like that. He's able to go, like I said, 20 feet deeper than anyone else on his braking mark and just stick it well enough to where he's not losing any time on the corner exit. They've put a lot of preparation in, it seems, in the past few weeks especially, and in turn, it's helped him. We've seen him at Darlington in the Coke Series, Evan, in fact, have one of his strongest runs of the season there, where his team helped him keep in the right mindset of keeping calm and thinking big picture, looking like he's keeping calm and just continuing to charge his way up to the field as Cadell bobbles his way to the back of the line.
Yeah, Jonathan Cadell in the mix at a battle with the number 24 machine of Grant Davis. Of course, Davis, one of the drivers in the postseason here, and came into this evening. You talk about drivers needing a good run. Grant Davis was 18 points off of the very top position and 15 above the cut line. So in a pretty good spot, all things considered, with a bit of an inverted look on his Exalta colors tonight. And Jonathan Cadell, you mentioned just up the road from him. Haven't seen Cadell in a couple of weeks, but good to see him on track as well tonight, sporting a Chevy Camaro this evening in the battle. And up the road side by side, here's Sexton on the 7 of Throttle. You get to the bottom, we really haven't seen anybody be able to put up a good defense trying to come back for the outside line. He'll make the pass as they catch lap traffic. Trevin Valderrama appears to have gotten into the fence at some point. He's got a damaged right side. He'll hold high, but it might squeeze the 7 car out. Yeah, nowhere there for Kyle Throttle to go. Now he'll get to the inside in 3 and 4, but it'll cost him at least one spot because Jonathan Cadell's now got that preferred line.
Yeah, and Valderrama actually pit both caution flags, so a rough night for the O2 machine. Tom Morano also out of the race, so down to just 29 cars on the lead lap. And that brings up now a good point. Eventually, the lap traffic is going to become a factor if this run continues the way it is, because the leaders still only have 1.3 seconds of fall off. The drivers who are falling down the board and are still deeper in the field, they're still nearly in the 23-second bracket. So they are just killing their tires with how they've attacked this track compared to some of the others who feel very confident, avoided major tire slippages, and have been able to have confidence in the braking zones to gain time, like right here.
He's on the inside of Kyle Kamer, who's going to give him a little bit more pushback than most of the cars that he's gotten around this evening. Was able to stay alongside for that whole front straightaway. A little bit of a challenge, center 1 and 2. But eventually the faster car in the preferred lane does win out. Mcbride now P9. And not the only pass going on here, because Sam Nieto trying to be one of the playoff spoilers as well. He's also going to go to the inside of Kyle Kamer. So Kamer looking to drop 2 spots to non-playoff drivers in back-to-back laps, is I think a little bit further down the running order. John Fowler got sideways on his own, battling for 27th. He took a trip through the grass on the front straightaway, but was able to save that race car, so there's no yellow, and we stay green.
So that signals one thing. The right rear tires are starting to get really, really imbalanced, so to speak, if you push too hard on corner exit trying to stop the gas. Some drivers have seen up to 3 to 6% difference in tire wear, up to about a 50-lap run in terms of the right front wear to the right rear wear, and that can make it difficult to handle the race car. Because the more you burn that right rear, the more wrecking loose you're going to be on the corner exit. So if you're continuing the pace you are, you're likely in that grouping of cars who have been able to save that right rear and be careful on this track. Nieto I'm curious how his tires are going to be, remember, with that slide, because with the slides as well, that heats up the tires a little bit more than they normally would be in Evan, and in turn, it takes a long while in some cases to cool them back down to normal temp.
And with all of this going on mid-pack, did want to kind of bring our look back up to the front of the field and kind of take a look at what the battle for the race lead has looked like, because Andrew Ferdinage is checked out. This is the battle for second, and not much of one. Daniel Epperhart had been very, clearly the number 2 car in this race. It had been he and Ferdinage that had been pulling away, but in the last couple of laps, Ferdinage pulled away his advantage just under 1.9 seconds to the battle right now for second. And as the 90 of Epperhart started to struggle on this long run, Adam Benefield closed in on him. He just made that pass for second, so Benefield at a race high P2, and Epperhart falls back down to where he started this race in third. So some drivers better off on the long run than others, and if you don't race on this sim competitively, Justin, I think it's easy to forget or to not realize how complex tire saving can be. The RealSimRacing Outlaw Truck Series is going to be racing tomorrow night at Texas Motor Speedway, and that will give me one more opportunity to embarrass myself, because a lot of that Truck Series schedule this year has been short tracks. And 20 laps into a run, I feel like I'm taking it easy on my tires, and I'm a second off of the pace already. Well, the top 5 trucks or so are still within the lap times that they were running 2 to 3 laps into the run. So it is certainly an art to tire saving, and especially at this Cup Series when you're talking about the skill level of these drivers being so high.
Yeah, let me put it this way. How much wheel are you putting into the car? How much throttle are you putting around the track in the short run? How much are you trying to battle with somebody and be aggressive on the short run? Are you forced up to the high line? Are you forced 3 wide top? All those things can factor in on making it difficult to save the tires for this point of the run. So if you're, say, over-aggressive, send it dive bombing underneath 7 cars in the span of 15 laps, you're going to pay for it around this point of the race. You try and essentially take it 3 wide on the top and hope you can rim ride around the track. You're likely going to kill those tires by lap 30. So it's essentially big picture. And the best drivers, especially your pro drivers, know just going even half throttle on corner exit in the first 20, 30 laps balances out the tire wear enough to where you can be much more quicker on the long run. Don't have to bobble the race car. Don't snap around the wheel too much. Just a little flick of the wrist here and there. If you're having to fight the car, or you're, say, sawing at the wheel back and forth, you're going to kill the tires, absolutely. So drivers like this in this grouping, if you're trying to saw back and forth to try and hold on to positions, that's where your tires are going to go off a cliff by now.
Looking at Michael Kaczynski, I haven't talked a bunch about him this evening, but he's back in 20th, battling with Ross Cato, one of those other drivers, as I mentioned, on a limited schedule, as John Fowler ducks to the pit lane at lap number 66 of 175. And Cato with the Fast Forward Ace Sports Ford, longtime RSR competitor, looking to make a full-time commitment for 2021. But a couple of starts here in a mid-pack effort as he looks to try to get himself back and into the rhythm that we saw from a couple of years back. Kaczynski is going to make this pass to swap out 19th and 20th, and Steve Durham as well, not that far off either. So that just goes to show you, even if it's this group, 16 seconds off for the race lead, we're fighting so much so. I'm going to cross over Cato back to the inside, and he'll take that spot right back from Michael Kaczynski.
And I think it's the line that really helped him a lot in that pass, in fact, is Kaczynski's actually coming to the pit lane. The 30's going to start the pit window with 107 to go, a massive undercut.
Yeah, way short. We're still about 20 laps away from getting to the halfway point in this race. That's when you would kind of suspect that things are going to be coming down to the pit lane. Granted, you can go for the undercut a little bit, but I don't know if I'm going to go this early, because your car is going to be really, really bad at the end of the race. Of course, if the car is really, really bad now, then you might as well come into the pit lane. So that'll move everybody up a spot. Jonathan Cadell started at 18th. He's in 13th right now. Looking to play a spoiler to the 9 of Thomas George up the road. One of the drivers who has been able to stay out of trouble thus far. And really, that's the key when we're racing in the round of 16. We'll talk about this, how the bar is going to get tougher to beat the top 12, then to beat the top 8, then to beat the top 4. If you want to make it all the way to the championship finale in Phoenix, you just need to stay out of trouble. That's what matters in this round. The 9 has been able to do so, and let's see if George really puts up a fight here.
These are teammates around here as well, so I'm expecting if Cadell gets a run, George will give him a lot of space. It's just Cadell hasn't been able to build up enough of a run yet on that car in front. So a decent performance so far in that Noah Sweet design paint scheme for tonight's action. Curious again if he can match some of the pace we've seen from last year, especially where he was a front runner in some of the races back in 2019.
Yeah, it's not the normal number 69 Toyota that we're used to seeing Cadell in, but he does have that Ally Pride number 48 Chevrolet on track here this evening, so he'll take the 1 point penalty per se for not having the car with the RSR contingencies, and I think it'll be a well worth 1 point for Cadell, who's not really worried about a little bit of a spread like that and running that lefty designs number 48 Chevrolet, which you never know, you could see on track later this year, if Twitter rumors are to be believed. That would be certainly cool to see. Cadell mid-pack right now in the number 13 position. And a caution flag at lap number 74. So that is really bad for the likes of Kaczynski, who just came down pit road. And it is Malik Ray, who had been up to position 7. And he got into it with the 30 of Michael Kaczynski.
That was a car on fresh tires. Remember, that's one of the gambles you take when you pit, right? Old tires versus new tires, and that time Kaczynski was able to set in much more. Kaczynski, I think, thought he didn't touch him. Right here, you're going to see, yeah, the 30 definitely did touch him on the left rear especially and sent Ray up the track.
It's a tough break for Malik Ray, but you're right. I mean, Kaczynski was far faster, and I guess the implication for the 30 was he thought that the 51 saw him coming. Let's go on board. And if you told me, Justin, that was a guy trying to dump somebody, I would have believed you just because of how it looked. And then you see Malik Ray go around. But I think you're exactly right. The 30 was going to the inside, and then when he sees Malik Ray going down there, he tried to straighten it out, lift, and avoid contact. Wasn't able to do so. Turns the 51 car around. Pit stops, though. Wholesale changes for your race leaders. It's the first time we've seen them all down pit road. 4 tires for Andrew Ferdinage it off. He'll be the first car on 4. As Brian Chambliss, I believe, missed his pit stall, drove all the way through. He'll be in next time, and Ferdinage will maintain the race lead, assuming that Matthew Mara pits this time. Yes, he does. The 23 was the only car who stayed out. So there we go. Pit stops just shy of halfway home and could put us to get the distance.
Now it's going to be the interesting thing, though, is now that all the cars can make it on fuel, how these cars play the strategy game, so to speak, Evan, is do they try, when they come into pit from here on out, if there's caution flags, it's going to potentially determine how the rest of this race factors in. Do we see drivers try and save them? Do we see drivers go in the opposite directions? Those are going to be the curious things here. Should note that Chambliss, of course, trying to build up a lot of points. He's been known for trying to roll through the boxes to get a lead lap point. Once he knows he gets that lap, he usually ducks down. That's exactly what he's doing. Otherwise, you can have a caution there because there's the amount of tire spin is massive on old tires after 20-30 laps alone.
So this is how this race shakes out. Lights on top of the pace car are going to stay on at least one more time around. And Brian Chambliss, by the way, is coming down to the pit lane after driving through. So he will take his trip down this time. He'll get serviced and he'll cycle things back to the back of the pack anyways. And it'll kind of correct itself there. So no major changes. And Agnell Phillip, Justin, I think has got a real good look in this race. He's up to 3rd. We saw in the initial start of this race that it was 3rd place starter further down, Daniel Epperhart, who went to 2nd off of the get-go for the inside of row 2. Haven't seen it since, but Phillip could get to P2 and then kind of knows what's going to happen in this one. So certainly Phillip has a chance with Malik Ray struggling with an incident tonight, 2 now, to maybe be that kind of leading opportunist to be spoiler.
Yeah, he's very much impressed me tonight here, Evan. Didn't know too much about him until recent weeks in terms of the pace. He's been very quick, very consistent, has been able to keep the car fairly clean in races, especially such as this. Very strong around the racetrack is this data reporter for ProPublica. Able to hold on to row 2 for this start here. Curious again if he can keep up with the pace, though. The car's up in front. That's going to be the major key because Ferdinage, Benefield, and several others about to scrap as Ray gets an EOL penalty, Evan.
Yeah, he went through too many pit stalls on pit road, so he's going to have to drop to the end of the line. It'll shuffle things up as we're coming to the green flag this time, but he was at the back with damage already. He will have to drop it to the rear. Green flag flies, though. We're back underway. Ferdinage goes up, and here's the fight for second. We said look out for Phillip had the inside, but a great corner for Adam Benefiel. He holds it off and maintains.
Really liking what I'm seeing from Benefiel tonight, but the curious thing is, how does Epperhart try to attack this? Does he try and save the tire to make sure he doesn't get as loose as he was, where he's snapping loose down off turn 4, especially last run? Or does he try and ride and wait for the car to come to him? Those are going to be the two key things, as some of the teammates starting to group together behind him.
And it looks like that side-by-side battle is with Washington on the outside. On the offense is Scott Mcclendon. He has a nose in front at the start-finish line. He'll look to get clear down at this end of the racetrack, but not able to squeak on through yet. David Washington trying to do what not many guys have been able to, and that is play defense high side. If there's a chance to do it, it's now. With fresh Goodyear tires and a real good look there, now they're leaning on each other. This battle for P7.
And of course, you burn a lot of tire on corner exit when you're fighting this hard side by side. So good there for Mcclendon to finally get clear, let it roll a little bit more stronger into the apex. Now Washington try and regroup and try and get his long run pace back without burning up the tires too much. So the main thing is for Washington, he's now got track position as Sexton really good on the short run is pouncing.
He's trying to make a move here. Sexton has been pretty quiet tonight. He's kind of been the second or third car in a slew of drivers. One driver's gotten through. Sexton's been there to pick up the loose change and get another spot from him as well. And it has allowed Sexton, who started 20th on the grid in this race, to move his way up to position number 9. So he's doing exactly what he needs to do after having just missed out on the playoff bubble. He was the second driver out. Of course, if the regular season had ended any differently, Gary Sexton could be a championship driver who I think could easily get to a Final 8, if not a championship 4. Instead, we had 5 different first-time race winners consecutively to close out that regular season, and that bumped him to the outside looking in, unable to put that number 13 Toyota in victory lane.
Yeah, and very much could have won at Daytona if it wasn't for a little bit of engine damage, but we've seen Phillip tap a bit of the wall there, by the way, the last time by, and crushing the front end. But for Sexton, it's going to be one where I know he's going to be hungry to try and win more races, to try and prove that he belongs. He's had the pace in several races, Evan, for contention for wins. He just hasn't had the luck go his way. So he's one of my favorites, again, to try and at least win a race before the season's out. The question's going to be where it comes in, and is Malik Ray in the field?
Yeah, and limited opportunities as well, you know. Depending on the situation, you might find yourself going up against some playoff drivers where, you know, you got to be a little bit aggressive, and you maybe feel like as a non-playoff driver, maybe I back out a little bit. Some drivers may have the opposite thinking. You know, he's got everything to lose, I don't, so he'll give me the space. But it is an interesting dynamic when you talk about playoff drivers and non-playoff drivers. We talked about those dual suspensions for Bradley Burke and Jared Mogard. Of course, Mogard, a playoff driver, getting into it multiple times on track with Bradley Burke, who was not. So always interesting to see if they play nice with one another or not. There's Dane Cruz in the number 46 Toyota. Haven't touched on him, but he's +6, now +7 to position 18. Ahead of Mcbride, who started this race top 10, but after a big shunt into the outside wall is basically limping that 5 car around, and he'll drop another because Chambliss going to go to the inside behind him.
Yeah, the playoffs for Mcbride have just been an absolute disaster so far. In contention for a top 10 finish at Darlington until the final 15 laps of the race after an incident down the front straightaway, having to hobble around a damaged race car all the way to the checkered flag. Now has to hobble around another damaged car, and these are the types of races where this could kill your playoff run. This has just not been the postseason Mcbride wanted, as Durham continues, meanwhile, to try and pass cars. Mcbride is just blown up. McBride's blown up for 20th.
I just saw that too. Big smoke in turn 1, and Rhett McBride done for the night. That is always your number one concern with front end damage, and that race car let go right in front of Malik Ray is going to come to a stop on the back straightaway. These race leaders come on by, unable to coast to pit road. It may trigger a yellow. He's below the yellow line, so you would think it would not, as he's going to slow roll this one out. But what a tough break for Rhett McBride. And only Tom Morano, by the way, is out of this race. The other 30 drivers are still on track. So if he drops all the way down, it's going to be 30th placed in the race for Rhett McBride. That's not great. And a spin, huge wreck now, and it's the 26 at the center of it.
I'm not sure what was going on right here, but it started all the way down the back straightaway with this ugliness. It seemed almost like Durham got loose off turn 3, blocked all the way down to the yellow line. I thought he was going to hit McBride. Then the next set of corners, all of that mayhem happens with Durham and company, where 4 cars get collected. Just once they got to turn 1, I believe Kalis got hit from behind, got bumped into Durham, and in turn, all the cars just get cleaned out right here.
And that is a big, ugly mess of race cars. And watch right there, Kalis breaks sideways. I don't think that's Kalis just turning down on the 10. I think it was Daniel Scott who drove into the back of him. It moves Kalis down. He hip checks Durham. And then all 4, including, I think that was Kaczynski, are the one that ends up in the fence.
Yeah, I believe so. Take a look, yeah. Just a little bit earlier braking. Mark was already riding his back bumper then, and that's a spell for disaster at Richmond. I wonder if Scott thought it was going to be a little more deeper, but those types of mistakes can be disastrous, and you see why. Scott with the worst damage out of all of them, I believe.
And as Daniel Scott limps around in the 26, that is the only playoff driver of those 4 that was in that big bit of contact. So that is certainly Daniel Scott getting the short end of the straw, and worse consequences for him. We got pit stops for Andrew Ferdinage. He is down pit road. I was just about to ask out loud, Justin, is it too early for drivers to be pitting? And as I say that, Ferdinage is down. You've got some cars towards the back of the pack pitting also. But this surprises me from the 88 machine, because he'll give up a ton of track position.
Here's the thing, he's countering that. Eventually, there's going to be a similar run like this, about 15-20 laps worth in turn. He becomes the lead car, and in turn, all those others have to go right through him and the rest of the traffic. So it's now going to be where Epperhart finally gets some clean air, tries to fight with Benefield. Philip, I think, got some decent pace, but actually had to let the 90 go at one point. This is going to be fun. I think this is going to be fun again, but it's also important, if you're Ferdinage and company, do not run over the cars in front on the short run, or else it's going to be disaster.
And it looks like as he blends back out, he will be 13th position, so it could have been worse. And basically all those cars behind him pitted as well. So notables like Lariah, Trudell, Kamer, Chambliss, Dylan Jones. I mean, there's a lot of playout drivers back there that came down to the pit lane to get their cars serviced. But it's certainly going to put Ferdinage on the backhand, and now we'll see how this plays out as Daniel Scott claims responsibility for the incident.
To be expected with that, with the contact, but now this is going to be where... This is huge if you're Phillip, Tice, Washington, George, several of those other cars where they've been quick, they just haven't had full track position. Now this is the true test. Can they keep the track position before in turn they have to counter, or in turn, will this go the way they think it's going to go? Otherwise, they're going to be eating alive a little bit after so many laps or so, because we're outside the equalization point that we were mentioning. About 5 laps on these tires.
And now we'll start to count things down on that last run. We passed the halfway point in this boosted Club 175, so the count now goes down. This time it'll be restarting with 76 laps to go. Front row, Daniel Epperhart, Adam Benefiel, with Agno Phillip, Joseph Tice, row 2, Mcclendon, Sexton, row 3, Washington, George, row 4, Stanford and Davis, row number 5. Those are your top 10 cars. Pace car down and in. First time for the Donnie car. Can Daniel Epperhart lead some laps under green as we're back underway? Benefiel going to stick right with them, but the Donnie does lead to turn 1.
To be expected now, the question's going to be how Benefiel tries to attack here. Of course, the 94 has been very cordial, very patient, and been winning cars he feels like he's been holding up go and knowing their playoff situations. This is the first bottleneck, though, this time, because Joseph Tice just doesn't have the corner exit speed like Benefiel has on the short run.
And that's going to keep the door open. So Phillips on the inside of the racetrack now. He's going to try to put a spot on him. They're battling behind as well as David Washington's trying to pass Sexton on the inside too. But there's the move. Agno Phillip back into third, tying a race high. We saw him up there a little bit ago, but he's able to get in front of Tice for the time being. And now here comes Scott Mcclendon, Justin, in what has been one of the best runs of the year for the 22 car.
Yeah, I remember him being so strong last season, contender for several victories, but this year, it's just been a nightmare for Mcclendon. Just 3 top 10s on the campaign and 14 starts, and just seemed to can't buy any sort of luck several times this season. Finished in the sub-top 20 mark with significant damage. Tracks such Chicagoland, Kentucky, Sonoma, where he showed good speed, ended up didn't even make it into the finish. Heck, he only made it 2 laps at Kentucky. It's just not been his campaign this year.
And how good would it be, maybe not to win the race, although he's certainly up and in the conversation, should, I think, Epperhart and Benefiel, who are that little bit better than everybody else, get the job done here. But don't look now. There is that purple or pink and black Ford of Ferdinage. He went all the way back to 13th, but now he's on 20-lap fresher tires. So he'll go to the inside handily, make the move on Agno Phillip. He'll move into this position, and now he looks to go all the way back to the race lead. And I think what would help Benefiel, Justin, honestly, is less caution flags, because he'll have 1 set of tires left, which is fine, and everybody else is going to have 2. He's going to drive to the race lead in this, and he's going to pull away. If we stay green, he wins the race. If we get a yellow and everybody else pits, he doesn't have to stay out on old tires as he gets around Benefiel, because he can come get tires again. But if this turns into restart after restart late, we'll see if those other drivers can utilize that extra set of tires. Honestly, I don't think I like the call off of the bat, but right now it's looking pretty good to the inside, and it took no more than 5 laps off of the restart, it feels. But Andrew Ferdinage now back in front. He'll clear the Donnie car down low.
And it's usually the first car on fresher tires who's able to get through the quickest. Then it's second car on back on the said strategy who has a very hard time normally and loses tons of time to that first car to cut through. Speaking of cutting through, cars are going to need a caution flag for a chance to cut through the pit lane possibly with the O2 around.
It was just as Ferdinage went to the lead. Trevin Valderrama is around and sounds frustrated on the radio, and I believe that's because the replay will show that is a single car loop. First time we saw that tonight.
Yeah, missed the braking zone, just way too much speed. Overcorrected at least 3-4 times to the point where it just snapped into the fence. Bad thing is, if you're Durham, right in the wrong spot for him, as you see right there with the wheel movement all over the place, trying to keep it straight.
Yeah, once you kind of get your first hard cut on the wheel, if you don't catch it then and then you start seesawing on it, it's not going to be a good time. And Steve Durham, who was involved in the incident, his night is done. Durham immediately is going to go to the garage to park it. And Valderrama will claim responsibility for the yellow. So he'll be starting at the back of this thing, regardless of the fact that, of course, he was 3 laps down, 2 laps down, I think 2 down. At the time of the incident, he was working lap 105. Those leaders who couldn't find a way around it, working lap number 107. So Ferdinage just took the race lead on new tires. So basically everybody else came back down pit road. There's a buffer, but Washington, Ray, Sexton, George, Stanford, Cruz, Davis, Cato, all going to cycle out of pit road. They're going to be coming from 9th on back, Justin. The advantage for Ferdinage on tires was 20 laps. They're going to have about 10 laps. Curious how quick they will catch the 88 if they do, similar to how he caught them.
I don't know if it's enough laps, honestly. They're going to be fairly quick up to around P5-ish, but that's where I think the times may start to get balanced back to where they were before a little bit. I think they need another 5-10 laps for their call to try and work. So now just about everybody in this field, keep in mind, Evan, is down to some of the final sets of tires in this race. Just one set of tires remaining in the pits, and now if it continues to go the tempo it's been going the past few caution flags, that really could shake up who wins this race in turn, and whoever's the smartest is likely taking the checker flag tonight.
Yeah, kind of out of nowhere, this race turned into a strategy race. We had talked about the possibility of that happening earlier when we talked about the tires and fuel and whatnot, but the yellows and the timing of the yellows in relation to some of the pit strategy decisions that drivers have made is what has turned this race into one of strategy. And I think that the fact that those drivers have a little bit less of a difference, old tires to do, than Ferdinage had, going to mean it's a little bit harder for them to get through the field. But if we go 64 laps to the end of this race, I think that that little bit of an advantage could be enough to counteract the little bit of a better race car than Ferdinage has had over everybody else, when he has pretty much been perfect up front and uncontested. So Valderrama claims responsibility. He'll get the end of the longest line penalty. Your top 8 cars stayed out. And it will be, those are all the cars, by the way, who pitted last yellow. So top 8 stay out, 9th on back, all fresh rubber, and all 4 tires.
I'm curious again how this all plays out, but what a drive so far for Ferdinage and Epperhart. They've been the 2 kings of the field so far at different points of the runs. Ferdinage has been decent, especially more so and more balanced on long and short run. But I think if Epperhart gets a chance in front of him, that might be his chance to try and win this race, and vice versa. So, gonna just need to hope that things continue to stay clean for those respective cars, and hope it doesn't get absolutely crazy behind them.
Restarts coming up this time through. Pace car off and in, and Ferdinage returned to the top of the mountain as he will lead from the inside of the front row. They have lane choice, but every single time they've opted to go for the inside of the front row. Green flag flies. We're back underway. 63 laps to go.
And a massive checkup on the bottom side right behind Brian Chambliss. All the drivers on fresh tires just got absolutely held up by that line.
There's nowhere for them to go. Chambliss in front of the non-emission Daniel Epperhart keeps him at bay, and they are still 2 by 2 through Jones, who now finds a gap in the middle of Jonathan Cadell, and here they come, led by Benefiel, trying to get on through, but the advantage isn't huge, as behind them it's the one of Tyson to the outside wall. Damage on the Hot Wheels entry after contact with Sexton. He keeps it straight though. We're still green.
Sexton a little bit too strong on the brakes, sent the one up to the wall. We're still green though. Kyle Trudell, meanwhile, is now off track with a technical issue, while Ray is making it 3 wide to try and pass everybody. Cadell is probably just saying, you know what? I'm getting out of this before things get wild.
Oh, and there's going to be contact there, spinning on the back straightaway. Oh, Michael Kaczynski hard into the inside wall. Caution.
Well, that was quick. And Ross Cato immediately taking blame for that with the caution point, but yeah. Cato just slammed the gas too hard on exit, just snapped off the corner. Clear cut right into Kaczynski's quarter panel and spun the 30 around for the worst damage on the track exit. That's what I talked about. If you try and mash the gas too quickly, or even for a split second go full throttle with the apex off, you're likely snapping into the car below you.
And there was a lot of discussion on the radio mixed with drivers involved in that incident. But yeah, Kaczynski found literally the worst part of the racetrack to make contact. And granted, on the sim, your concern is not really hitting a wall at a tough angle for the sake of hurting yourself, but for the sake of hurting your race car, and that's kind of the incident. And there was more contact under the yellow as Cato backed up in front of Kaczynski. So those two drivers with some back and forth. Did an update on one of your playoff drivers, Kyle Trudell, Justin, had restarted in third position the last time by. And in the chaos, I didn't even notice that car didn't come back around. He had a connection issue, fell out of the session. He is reconnecting now, but Kyle Trudell is going to go from a top 5 car to about 5 laps down due to that issue.
Yeah, and the tough thing is he's going to need a lot of cautions to get the lucky dog and or his laps back. At least 3 laps lost, because that should be up to 4 or 5. On the bright side, if that caution didn't happen, he's likely way out of contention for this race. Instead, he gets to stay in front of a couple drivers on the pylon.
Good news is he had I believe it was about a 27 or so points advantage above the cut line coming into this evening, but he's now running my time in scoring, showing that Kyle Trudell is tentatively 26th. And the problem is he's going to be far from the first car a lap down, which means getting the lucky dog going to be that much more difficult for him. He could be basically be stuck there mid to high 20s. With the only possibility of gaining points being if other cars rack out, and not a position you want to put yourself in. So that's why a big points advantage helps. But I have a feeling he'll be pretty uncomfortable when we head to Thunder Valley next week as the lights on top of the pace cars stay on.
Take a look at this still. Sam Nieto's again held on to decent track position. He's been bumped a couple times from behind, but has been able to hold on to the grip in the race car. He was one of the drivers we talked about, Evan, as one of the favorites potentially come postseason time, but it just didn't work out that way just about. Just still has not found his way, so to speak, in the victory lane racing car. He's had pace. He's been a top 5 car several times over. It just, he needs that little bit of edge, it seems almost, to try and finally bust through the wall for victory lane and try and celebrate there instead of watching us Ferdinage or someone else cheers in the said victory lane circle.
There's been a lot of drivers, I think, who feel like they're in that position as well, where they're just looking for a little bit more to kind of break through. And maybe if you get that first, you could open the floodgates, get you some mojo, and maybe a little bit of luck involved as well. We talk about all the different race winners we've seen. We had double the amount of different race winners over the course of the regular season this year than we did in 2019. So all it takes is having the opportunity, taking advantage of the opportunities given to you, and just being in the right place when it matters the most. And maybe that puts you into victory lane. And who knows what that does for your championship. If you're one of the playoff drivers, a win automatically would lock you into the next round, regardless of where you sit in the points. Pace car off and in again. A lot of stop and start as of late, but we'll put lap number 120 behind us and take a restart with still 55 laps to go. And the 88 car out in front as Ferdinage brings us to it.
Neil just couldn't get a good launch off there. Epperhart nearly hit the back end of him, but Mcbride just took it 3 wide to the back end of the top 10 to try and pounce on several cars on early breaks.
That's what you need, though. We talked about the cars on fresh tires. They have to make moves, and Daniel Epperhart is the lead driver on the freshest rubber, having tucked in line right now into position number 4. It looks like he'll be followed through by Benefiel. Now he gets around Sam Nieto, who goes up the hill. Cato's up the hill from a lap down all of a sudden as cars trying to get around him, and now you can see the difference on fresh rubber as both Epperhart and Benefiel get by very quick.
And Cato, remember, significant damage, especially down the backstretch with the secondary incident. So that car's going to need to get out of the way and quickly. This is not a good spell, though. If you are on the fresher tires, you're going to go around older car tires because that's where it gets ugly. But for Benefiel, this is his chance to try and charge forward again. He's now still the quickest car on the track as a result. George is having problems.
And now it's Thomas George struggling. He is going backwards, falls to 17th as he was all over the place in 4 after he was 3 wide and got a little bit of a touch by the 24 of Grant Davis. So that costs him some spots. George down to 17th, the lower range of the playoff drivers in the field here this evening. he carries on ahead of that 7 to Kyle Trudell, who's back on track 4 laps down, position 26.
It's getting ugly a little bit here, though. A bit of contact on the right side a couple times from Sexton, and Ray wants to get through him quickly. Wouldn't be shocked if Ray tries to send it hard up the inside here, if he can. Just a little bit more patient this time, though, knowing that Kamer is just trying to finally get clear of Sexton first.
Malik Ray as well on the fresher tires. That's going to help. Let's go 3 wide on the back straightaway. Looking to the inside of Kamer. Sexton on the outside. Is there room for all of them? It's a tight squeeze. Somehow they made that work, and it's Kamer who gets squeezed out. Sexton holds strong. I think Malik Ray is going to have the better position here in this battle as Kamer drops back with David Washington. And Malik Ray, after being quiet for the last couple of runs, breaks back into the top 10. He's now 9th.
Much more calculated move there from Ray because, again, thought he was going to send up the inside possibly in turn 1, but instead waited for the better run. And now Joseph Tice is now getting a chance to get some good runs here. These cars, by the way, are all on equal tires. It's just been the difference on how they've driven the car in the short run and how well they've balanced the tire heat cycles, and as well if they've been on the bottom. But up towards the front, here comes Benefiel, and he's coming in quick, 3/10 quicker than some of the cars up in front.
He is charging those two. Benefiel now chased with Michael Araya behind because as the positioning continues to shuffle through, we saw Daniel Epperhart rocket to the race lead. So he's there up on the fresh rubber. So just as I thought I liked Ferdinage's strategy, he gets a yellow. And I think it was too soon for him to come down and get tires as well. Because again, he'd be a sitting duck now. All your race leaders basically have a trip down to the pit lane and 4 fresh tires still sitting there for them, should it be necessary. Benefiel's going to get second here shortly. The question is, does Ferdinage want to fight him for it? Or does he just let the number 83 machine go and maybe avoid contact? Because we've seen a lot of front-to-back incidents into the corner, and it's really clear right now Benefiel's getting held up. I'm sure he wants the pass to happen soon because he doesn't want Epperhart to get away if this is the battle for the race win. There's the opening in turn 3.
Gonna get just enough of a run down the backstretch to dive it on in. But this is now where's the tough part. I was talking about if you get it more than 15 laps of a difference, it is massive to be able to gain a lot of time, short, medium, and long. But if you get a caution within that set period of 15 laps like we did, and you take away, say, that 10-lap difference, it equalizes right at this mark for these cars. It's not going to be easy whatsoever now for Benefiel to try and even get by Daniel Epperhart now. If this race continues to go green, he's going to have a little extra grip, yes, to send into the corner. It's just going to be equalized out to the apex off, most likely in some of these cars.
Just looking at kind of the chaos behind, I think Benefiel's got a real good look here at a battle for the race lead. Epperhart had, nearly a half a second on him, and the 83 coming from behind has been able to close the gap. We got Agnell Phillips, Sam Nieto fighting further down the road in a battle for 5 and 6. We've got Scott Mcclendon in the mix as well, but I think you give Benefiel 5 laps. That's the number I'd give him until he can get to the race leader. So let's watch this battle in the meantime. Mcclendon on the inside of Nieto. That's for P6. He's got it. I'm not sure either of them going to be better than Malik Ray, who's arrived on the scene.
And Ray, we've talked about it several times, has the pace to try and win this race. He just has not had the luck. And I believe our leader may be thinking about something here, possibly. Apparently pressed the wrong button, pardon me, so tried to trick the field and think he was...
command for those, he gave a pitting in command, which would be a bit strange. He's only been out there for 27 laps, and again, these guys can go the distance, so I think that was Benefiel hitting the wrong hotkey, unless he's trying to get in the heads of everybody else.
I've seen it work before. I've seen people press that button and then crash into the barrels, so there's that. But still within 3/10, probably just trying to get Benefiel to try and laugh and make a mistake.
And he apologized. I think he said over the radio as well that he just hit the wrong button, so don't expect that in Benefiel to be coming down to the pit lane, even though he did the sim racing equivalency of, waving your hand out the window and giving that sign. But maybe anything to distract Adam Benefiel. It's a 1-2 breakaway right now as we look at the battle between Tice and Nieto behind for 11th and 12th. The number 2 machine just lost that position, so give it to Tice, who's on the cusp of a top 10 position. And like it has been all night, you got about a dozen cars here within 3-4 seconds.
Yeah, and they've had that exact point I was talking about where they're already a full tenth or two slower than the cars who are on older tires in some cases. It's just like running in place, so to speak, just waiting for somebody to kill their tires and fall off in the next 10-15 laps to be able to then pounce and take advantage of your tire saving. But now the interesting thing is for Nieto, does he try and let the playoff cars go? Because it looks like at least one of them wants to try and go in fast and use him as a buffer.
Well, that's the key, it's not something that is a huge factor in these races, but when you have this dynamic of 31 cars in the race, just under half of them, 15, being playoff drivers, I always wonder how they're going to interact with one another, and you can see right here, two of the drivers playing spoiler. Malik Ray, Scott Mcclendon, they'll swap P6 and 7. Can Malik Ray win this race? That last lap, not really a good indicator of his speed. Granted, he made a pass, that's why, but Epperhart with the 22.2, so he's pulling. Benefiel, Ferdinage in the 22.3s, Lariah with the 0.4. Let's look at the lap time for Malik Ray this time. That was a clean lap, no interference in position number 6. Malik Ray going to come in with a 22.3. That was about the third best lap on track last time. Not enough to, walk up to the race lead, Justin, and I think at a 3.7 second deficit, he's going to need to be about a tenth or so better to make up that gap in 33 laps, but you get a late race yellow, a restart. Malik Ray could, despite all the trials and tribulations, 2 bits of contact that ended the longest line penalty for going through any pit stalls on pit road, could be a factor here, looking for a 4th win of the year.
I think possibly, absolutely. It's just, I think he needs that caution flag to have a real shot to equalize everyone out, because that's where he thrives. Once everyone's bunched together, can just take a 3, keep it clean for the most part, and just run away. At this mark, it's almost looking like he's pressing, knowing he wants to win this race. He doesn't want to finish in P6, knowing his caliber. He almost matches Kyle Busch in that personality grouping, if anything, with the lower divisions in real life. So it's where he's that hungry for a race win. Finally starting to get back together. He's found a different line that's starting to work a little bit that actually is helping him catch up now. Just riding right next to that yellow line in 1 and 2, going for that arc in 3 and 4.
And of course, we talk about it, streaming his races, one of the most charismatic characters as well, I think, in the iRacing community and the streaming community. I know that, winning here on a Monday night is not like winning in the Coke Series, which is at the top of his bucket list here as 2020 starts to run down. But, I've talked with Malik many times about the competition in this series, and again, had a couple of race wins in the regular season. When we were talking before this race, Justin, probably one of the championship favorites if he was able to get enough starts in to get that 10-start minimum requirement and fight for the playoffs this year. But it didn't happen, and I think that Malik Ray will even tell you, listen, these guys are no walk in the park. He's got a win percentage in the 30s or 40s. That's high. That's really high. But even for him, a driver at the top echelon of sim racing, it is no stroll in the park, because he's now top 5.
Yeah, and keep in mind, some of the drivers in front of him are contenders for in the next couple of years, at the very least, for Road to Pro, if not, have been in the Coke Series. Car just blew up in front of the leaders, though. Kaczynski has just blown up right in front of Lariah, just got out of the way of him.
And he has the benefit because he's able to get down to pit road, so he gets in, unlike what we saw when the 5 of Mcbride blew up earlier in this race. Not that it helps Kaczynski much, because it takes about 30 minutes to get down to pit road anyway, or 30 minutes, I should say, to get an engine replaced, to get that damage repaired. So we are not going to see Michael Kaczynski again in this race. His night is done. Tough break for one of the drivers who was looking real good kind of in those mid-pack battles to maybe scrap and get a top 10 earlier. His night went south very quickly since then. You're on board with Kyle Kamer. I don't want to say he's been quiet, Justin, but he's been near a lot of the battles we've been talking about. He just hasn't been the aggressor or the guy on defense. Started 5th, fell to P16. What's Kamer been missing tonight?
Partly luck on the strategy calls, partly it seems just it's not gone his way. He's struggled at times to hold the bottom right there, you see, with that line. That's left him up for grabs, I think, a couple times for people to dive to his inside and freight trim and in turn burn up his tires trying to hold it on the outside to defend. He just has not had a chance, I think, to really calm down and get on the right strategy. Now we're at that mark where I think everybody uses their tire sets as their caution flag from here on out. Use their final set and then rides them off to the race. I think he needs that and then some attrition in front to gain some valuable points if he wants to contend for a top 10 at the very minimum in the box crush machine.
And now it's a matter of if or when. If this race goes green to the end, it will be either one of or the longest green flag run of the race. It would be unfortunate for Ferdinage, who again pitted a caution cycle earlier than this and therefore has fallen to third and allowed this to become a two-horse race between Epperhart and Benefiel. Or, based on how the race has been, we see a yellow, everybody's got tires to go after, and then who knows what happens in the run to the end as they all fight for that ticket to the round of 12. But, I mean, you can see this trio here, the 9, the 2, the 8. It's for 14th, 15th, and 16th. George and Kamer, playoff drivers, needed every little bit of points that they could squeeze.
And remember, with it being so tight for that back half of the top 16, every point's going to matter come at Bristol because it's Bristol. And it's not just the simple saying of, it's Bristol, baby. It's, oh boy, it's Bristol. I hope I don't crash, baby, or else my points chances are done for. It's not an easy track to race at, and it's one where there have been some changes with some of the tire models and the newest updates to where it drives a little differently and has tire wear function a little differently compared to in the past.
You can see the 22 and the 11 as Dylan Jones is trying to get around the 22 machine, unable to happen. A bit of a slide that time, so that battle continues. Further back, Thomas George still in a fight with the 80 Kamer. Up the road, by the way, Dylan Jones did just complete that pass to get around Scott Mcclendon. So you got 21 race cars on the lead lap right now, just waiting. And I think that somebody that's holding their breath is Daniel Epperhart in this one, Justin. He and Benefiel, a half a second apart. It's those two fighting for the race win in this one as these other battles take place all over the racetrack. But I thought when Benefiel made the pass on Ferdinage, you know, this is it. I mean, he was faster, he closed in, but he was never able to get a pass done, and now he's kind of stuck. About 7-8 car lengths off for the race lead. Don't worry about the lappers up the road. You're on board with Adam Benefiel. You're chasing that red and white Ford Mustang up the road of Daniel Epperhart, battling for the race win. Don't worry about the lap traffic, Justin, but there's a lot of it now. 1-2 cars, maybe not a concern, but this much. Kalis to the inside. He'll get out of the way, but you've got Scott, Soa, Fowler. That's kind of a group of three. I know they're going to try to get out of the way and let these guys go at it, but Benefiel's closing. If the 90 catches them at just a rough time, it could put them in.
Yeah, there's not as much clean air now with all the traffic in front first of all for the 9 for second. Remember how loose Epperhart got when we had our other long run of the race. I'm almost wondering if Epperhart's reached that point because at least visually he's dancing off the corners. Benefiel, he's more straight and a little bit farther away from the wall with how he's been able to arc it down the front straightaway. That could be the main difference that allows the 83 to try and have a shot of this race, as long as the traffic lets them behave and if this race stays green.
That's the key. They both get to the inside of Scott. In fact, it looks like Benefiel going to get held up a little bit here with the 26, and there it is. Caution! 163. It's Kamer and Mcclendon. Mcclendon we had just seen battling inside of the top 10, and it starts up the road as Scott Mcclendon claims responsibility on the back straightaway. There it is. He just got into the inside wall, came down and tagged the 1, and what a great night thrown away for the 22.
He just got loose down the straightaway. Once he got on the full throttle, look on the onboard. He's already loose off turn 2. Looks okay, then right about here, when he's full throttle, just snaps it bit to the wall and overcorrects a little bit, trying to keep it off the 1. Still clips the 1. Absolutely demolishes that race car and hurts Joseph Tice's championship hopes for the round of 16 to get to the round of 12. Kamer, of course, we talked about his bad luck. It's definitely gotten worse now for obvious reasons from that.
Tice was only 4 points above the cut line coming into this evening. It was running in 9th position. Live timing and scoring has Tice falling just a little bit down. But here they are, wholesale stops. Everybody was able to save 1 set of tires as we get another look at that incident. And you can see Tice giving him tons of room. Just wrong place at the wrong time. A pretty good hit to the outside wall, but all of your race leaders are down pit road. They all have 4 tires left to get them on the race car and go. Try to keep that track position, getting back on track.
This is the worst fears for some of the drivers, especially if you're Epperhart, Benefuel and Company, because this puts Ray right in contention. Here he comes.
And for a drag race off of pit road, Malik Ray racing to the stripe with the green cones. I think Malik Ray is going to be 4th, but he almost took 2nd. That's how close he was. We'll wait for this to sort itself out. Again, now Ferdinage is right back in the conversation because he's back on the even tires. But it looks like as Scott Mcclendon is staying out for the moment. And now back down pit road. Steve Soa also staying out, and he is trying to get a lap back, I believe, or try to get, just back into the conversation for the lead lap. He's down. That it'll be Daniel Epperhart 1, Adam Benefield 2, Andrew Ferdinage 3, Malik Ray 4, Michael Laraya 5 is how they'll line up.
And you may be wondering, how in the world did Ray gain 2 positions? We've talked about it a couple times. He is known for being the quickest in the pit lane. And and that was enough to give him to where he has a shot to win this race. As mentioned, this is not what you wanted to see if you are Epperhart, Benefuel, or Ferdinage, because Ray now has a big-time shot of stealing this race.
He is a real good look. And listen, I don't think that this is going to be a championship decider. I think that Adam Benefield, Andrew Ferdinage, and Daniel Epperhart, they can all finish 2nd, 3rd, 4th in this race, and they'll be fine. They're still going to advance to the round of 12. They're some of the top drivers in the points right now and in this series. However, I'd certainly love to get the race win. You never know what happens in Bristol. We've seen the issues, for the likes of Rhett McBride, 30th, Kyle Trudell, 24th. From issues outside of their control. So that is kind of how it shakes things out. And would the race win be nice? Absolutely. Is the race win necessary? No. And I think that is why that maybe Malik Ray has a good shot here, because these drivers aren't going to risk it all to block him. They will take P2 points before they take a wrecking for the win. Whereas if we were talking about, say, a Daniel Scott or a Kyle Kamer, maybe they go for checkers or wreckers, knowing that that's really their best shot to move on in the postseason. The pace car is going to be in this time with 6 laps left to go on the scoring pylon. Everybody, wholesale changes. They've all got fresh rubber. It'll be a Daniel Epperhart and Adam Benefield front row from Richmond. Green flag flies. 6 laps to go.
Here comes Ray, though, right behind him, and it 3 wide for 2nd.
To the very inside of the 1, but he balks for the moment. Holds up. Benefield bails from the outside. Now side by side 2nd, and he gets loose now. So the 88 of Ferdinage, he'll stay 2nd. Malik Ray to the inside. Side by side, the battle's on for 3rd. Ray on the inside of the 83.
And right there a little bit more deeper here. Benefield, though, right up to him. Remember, he's a former pro driver in the NASCAR Coca-Cola Racing Series. One of his true tests, the Lion, though, wants to gain some points here.
Talked a lot about the respect between those two, but a good hard-fought race at Darlington last week, in which it was Malik Ray holding off Benefield, and there's contact! Benefield's into Laraya! Caution at 172. We will go to overtime after Adam Benefield gave it too much and got sideways.
Try to go a little bit too quick on the corner exit right there, just enough to snap it to the left. And Benefield does what some drivers need to know. Lock it up. If you start going sideways, otherwise you're spinning it at full momentum into the inside. He prevents significant damage. Raya gets some bad damage. Unfortunate. That's going to hurt both their points nights after being top 10 cars all night.
A sarcastic response from Benefield as well when Lariah said you gave it too much. He says you're exactly right. And as well, Justin, you're exactly right, because if he doesn't lock it down, how many times have we seen a car get sideways in a front straightaway there and just destroy the inside wall because how it kind of jets out right to the inside of the racing groove in turn one? That doesn't happen. And because Benefield never actually stopped, it looks like scoring is going to keep him in position number 5, making Lariah the innocent victim, the big loser, who's being told to stay in 15th.
Well, that's going to be a little bit contested, but I believe he will elect to take the EOL with the caution point, so that's not going to matter too much. But the main thing to mention with that is, when you get sideways like that, if you fall before a certain point, and this is why some drivers who stop for incidents also lose positions. If you go below about 40 miles an hour, give or take, that's where it considers you part of the incident, you lose spots. You stay above that mark, you're keeping where you are in the track position as well as in front of anyone who is below that mark in the incident.
3 unclaimed yellows to start the night, 5 claimed yellows since then. Adam Benefield, as you mentioned, will get that end of the longest line penalty as he claims responsibility, so the whole maintaining 5th on track doesn't matter a whole lot. He'll go all the way to the rear. And now, if anything, if I'm Michael Lariah, I'm not jealous. I'm just upset because, you know, I could have been scored P5 or 6 and it would have been okay. Instead, I'm going to be back there basically with Benefield, and it doesn't really matter all that much. So, restart again. It's going to go to overtime. So, it'll be a 2-lap shootout here from Richmond, with Daniel Epperhart having an opportunity to get himself to the round of 12. But Ferdinage picked up a spot, 3rd to 2nd. On that last restart, he'll now be right on his heels. Mcbride 3rd. We could be in store for one of the best finishes of the season.
Where did Dylan Jones come from in all of this, too? Because we haven't said his name since, like, the halfway point of this race 7. He's in P4, up 19 spots, with one of the cleanest cars in the race. So he's got a shot at trying to steal victory. Sexton, who's been strong in the short runs, has a chance to steal the victory. This race can go in any direction here. And it all comes down to how this is played out on the last lap especially, because if you watched along on Friday, the bump and run was used in NIS Open action. Will we see it here tonight is going to be a question as well.
Lights still on. Doesn't matter if we lose or gain anything. Again, we know at the tail of the tape, we're going to go to overtime at Richmond for the first time we've seen this story in RSR competition. Again, the control car as well has the opportunity to choose the inside or the outside line. And just as I say that, Justin, the leader has been on the bottom all night long. But at the 1 to go, Daniel Epperhart picks the top.
Interesting call here, but I think the main thing is it allows him to box in Ferdinage, so to speak. Where if he gets a good launch, can at the start and finish line go to the bottom and then box the 88 in. And also in turn, though, slows up the start for Ray, because if Ray is behind Epperhart on the start, he likely gets a good launch and tries to take up the inside of the 90 into turn 1. So this is a smart call. Think big picture, try and box in the 51 while also making sure you control the bottom if you launch it right.
Here we go for a final try, overtime finish with 2 laps to go. The pace car is off. Daniel Epperhart for the outside. Green flag flies. We're back on our way, and it is a huge restart. He'll lead by 3 car lengths to turn 1.
Exactly what he was hoping for. Ray couldn't get the launch he was looking for because he didn't get the good run for the bottom, but Jones is getting freight trained by a lot of drivers as caution is a big one.
And it's Daniel Scott contact, I believe, with Adam Benefield. Yellow flag on the first attempt at an overtime restart, and that was a bit of 3 wide gone awry right here off of turn 2.
Yeah, and it's like, I think he got the spotter call right as he passed by the front fender of Fowler, tried to go up a little bit, while Scott got loose, hit him in the door, looped him around, Trudell had nowhere to go, and Ross Cato just drives on through it, waving goodbye here. Just Kyle Kamer nearly got involved in yet another one, though, that could have added even more damage to that front bumperless car.
You can see him finding his way through, avoiding the spinning wreckage. And I'm just listening to the driver radio. Daniel Scott said something. He's not very happy with Adam Benefield, and Adam Benefield is questioning where that comes from. So there's a bit of choice of words going back and forth on the radio. Justin, we said early, listen, we saw a bit of that at Darlington. Wouldn't be shocked if we see that here. And just as I'm still listening in, it's turned into a bit of a shouting match now.
And wonder if we can get an aerial look if we can, because we've talked about deep entry points by some of the drivers. And if you leave the door open, someone's going to dive underneath. The 83 kind of actually dived in underneath the 7, passed by the 7, and then by corner exit at turn 2 got underneath the 26. So it was that strong of a send. I think that's the point of contention. Some drivers don't like it. Others, it's free real estate.
And they kind of came into each other. You mentioned Scott came down, Benefield came up. I don't think Benefield knew they were 3 wide because he was upset that Scott, he just told Scott he had a car length up to the wall. I don't think that Benefield knew that Daniel Scott had Fowler up there as well. So that tightens things up that much more also.
Exactly. Because Fowler is still at the quarter panel just about at the 26. So it wasn't as simple as, okay, I'm going to go up towards the middle line. There is that potential for miscommunication that comes into play there with how tight the margins are at that point. But on the bright side, we're going to have to see how this is played out once again, because the first time it worked out exactly how I think Epperhart wanted it to go. Ray couldn't get the launch he needed in row 2 to try and send it up the inside. Ferdinage, in turn, couldn't try and make a move himself as he got slowed up a little bit, trying to time up the start of the 90. I wouldn't be surprised if he does it again.
We'll try, and listen, it was a great jump. I mentioned 3 car lengths, but by the center of 1 and 2, Ferdinage had it down to about 1.5. So he rolls the center of the corner oh so very well. So even if, Epperhart gets a good jump, it doesn't mean that this thing is locked up, done, and decided by any stretch of the imagination. This one's still going to go the distance. We mentioned we have 3 attempts at a green to white checker to finish. We will go around for attempt number 2. Minute on when the lights come off. I expect Daniel Epperhart once again to choose the outside. Looks like he will.
Absolutely straight to the top he goes for a second time. And keep in mind, it's not like in official racing where if you get a good launch, you can time it up for down to make a 3-line start and finish line. You can't change lanes before said start and finish line. So Ray's again put in a box where he has to hope Ferdinage is perfect on his start, so in turn he can try and make a move. Otherwise, he's likely going to be fighting for P2 at this mark. Sexton, though, might be able to try and take advantage of this top line start to power on by for a fight for second.
We're going to go on board with Malik Ray for this restart. He'll be 3rd for the inside of row 2. It's Andrew Ferdinage, and up top, race leader Daniel Epperhart. 2nd attempt and an overtime finish. Green flag.
And a bit of bumper contact, that was to be expected. Wanted Ferdinage to go. He did not go, though, and now it's a fight for 3rd instead of for 2nd.
Yeah, Gary Sexton into the mix as well. He'll go to the outside, slide it out of 2. It is the 88 of Ferdinage, clear for 2nd. Ray Sexton going to fight for 3rd as Epperhart looks for the white.
Race is official. Now it's the matter of who takes the checker flag. This is right what Epperhart wanted. Just needs to hit his marks right as Ryan and Davis are around to the front stretch.
They're around, but it's the white flag. We stay green. Daniel Epperhart, final time as Ray goes wide. They're all out of control, but race win 4 on the year for Epperhart. Punches his ticket to the round of 12. Epperhart wins on the green-white checkered finish at Richmond.
Smart call, to say the very least, from Epperhart. Smart call on those final starts of the race to put himself in the best spot to win said race. He knew where Ray was strong, played to those strengths, and took advantage to take the checker.
And there was more wrecking. Daniel Scott, Kyle Kamer crashing across the start-finish line as Daniel Scott got loose and spun into the number 8 machine. There was a lot going on the white flag lap there for Richmond, but the fans enjoyed the show regardless. You see the fireworks atop the back straightaway grandstands, and you see the burnouts on the front straightaway because Daniel Epperhart is celebrating race win number 4 of 2020. Let's take a look at your full race results tonight as he'll probably go try and find victory lane. Park it right there. Margin of victory, 0.3 of a second. Atop Andrew Ferdinage in second and Gary Sexton in third. But, I mean, big up. Sexton, Jones, Ray all started outside of the top 20 to get top 5 finishes in this one. Agno Phillip quiet in the second half for P6. Thomas George, Jonathan Cadell, Eric Stanford, David Washington, the top 10.
Brian Chambliss, an up-and-down night, 11th spot. Did get a bonus point for leading a lap, however. Sam Nieto back to 12th. Then this is where it gets crazy. Sora finished in 13th. Benefield recovered to 14th. Daniel Scott to 15th after being involved in one of the caution flags. Kyle Kamer to 16th. Then Ross Cato recovered to 17th after earlier incidents. Lorian Davis crashed hard into the wall for 18th and 19th. Dan Cruz spun in turn 2 to lose those spots for 20th spot. They were the last cars in the lead lap as well.
They were, unfortunately, and then you see on this back half, the playoff drivers of note here, Kyle Trudell 21st, Joseph Tice 23rd, and Rhett Mcbride 30th. Tough go for all those drivers. That's your finishing results. Only Tom Moreno would be behind them, finishing in 35th, or 31st, I should say, of the 31 cars in the field here tonight from Richmond. We'll take a quick opportunity to step aside. When we come back, we'll talk with your top finishers, where Daniel Epperhart is in Richmond Raceway Victory Lane. You're watching the 2020 RealSimRacing Full Throttle Cup Series, powered by Boosted on RaceSpot TV. And back live from the virtual Richmond Raceway, where coverage of the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series is powered by Boosted, the place where gamers and creators go to monetize digitally. Their team will build you a totally free e-commerce store and help get sponsorships for those looking to build their brand online. Boosted is the #1 sponsorship platform for esports influencers. Join their team and visit boosted.club for more information. Back live at a RaceSpot TV booth on the iRacing Sports Network. We're alongside our producer Hugo Luis and Justin Prince. My name is Evan Pasoko as we go trackside to talk with tonight's race winner, where Daniel Epperhart gets race win number 4 on 2020. But most importantly, becomes the first driver to lock in to the round of 12. Daniel, congrats.
Thank you, man. It was a fun night, and I had to bring the old retro red Arbin, I guess. I really don't know. I just looked for a NASCAR 90 back in the day, a throwback scheme, and I chose to pick that one. So I wanted to run it again and see if we get the win because it was so depressing at Darlington. But I'm happy to start the first round in the second race with a win tonight.
In the points, you didn't need to win tonight to make this happen. You know, any finish really, but certainly if it was just the second or third, would have done the trick points-wise. But, you know, to get a win, to get a couple of extra bonus points, but I think to go through and fight with these guys that you'll likely have to deal with in Phoenix, you know, Andrew and Dylan, to be able to get one on them going head-to-head, I feel like that may be the biggest thing that you take away from this?
Yeah, for sure. Andrew, for sure, was the class of the field tonight. You know, I feel like he was faster than me, most definitely on the, you know, short run and on the long run. But Adam was quick. I burnt my stuff up that first run, and I'm really bad at that on these short tracks, and that's something that worries me if I can make it to Phoenix. You know, if we get in the Final Four and we run that last race, Andrew's going to, if he gets there and makes it, he's going to be the guy to beat. So I really got to get the, you know, spinning up off the corner of the tires. I got to keep grip on the rear tires at these flat tracks like, you know, Richmond. It's going to be tough, and that's what, you know, I was learning tonight a little bit watching Andrew and watching Adam is they're really good at these short tracks and this low downforce package. So we got to work on that for the next coming weeks.
Of course, you know, this race, you mentioned that Andrew was the class of the field, had a bit of ups and downs with the varying pit strategies. He went for the undercut, pitted it earlier than anybody else. I mean, at this point, it was about a half a dozen cautions ago, but kind of at the middle point of this race, he was able to drive through to the front. Then everybody else came down to the pit lane as well. What's it like trying to manage the limited tire sets, which definitely, I think, had an influence on this race?
Oh, for sure. It had a big influence, and I think that's what really hurt Andrew and put him behind the 8-ball was him pitting early, and he was 3 spots back or 2 spots behind me when that last caution came out before we had all them green-white checkers. It's just, you know, it's the name of the game with these guys. And, you know, with these tire limits, you know, it's kind of like real life. The only problem is I don't think the tire fall off in real life is as bad as it is on here. 5 laps is kind of ridiculous when we really just, you know, that's kind of like scuffing your tires the first 5 laps. And that's what really hurts you is they haven't got it quite right to have a tire limit. But, you know, that's the name of the game. I mean, it just throws another obstacle at us.
Stress-free as we head to Bristol Motor Speedway next week. What's the outlook for Thunder Valley?
I like Bristol. Definitely with this package, I feel like the bottom comes in a little bit. It's the only like dynamic track we got left right now where you can make the bottom work and it be a little bit faster than the top in the long runs. So that's kind of exciting to go there. It's real tight quarters, you know, and then, I mean, and anybody can just about win there. Long as you get out front. And, you know, I'm hoping my buddy Kyle Kramer can get the run back into the playoffs. You know, he's hanging out right now and, you know, we'll do everything we can to keep him up there. But, you know, it's going to be a tough one next week. And I hope the best to everybody. And we'll see if we can get another one and go back-to-back.
It sounds good as you try to keep this momentum rolling. Daniel, racing with number 4 on 2020. Thanks for racing with us. Thanks for chatting, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you, buddy.
Race winner tonight in the Boosted Club 175. I'll pass things down the pit lane to my colleague Justin Prince, who's standing by with P2 tonight. That's Andrew Ferdinage.
Yes, indeed, Andrew Ferdinage, a strong run tonight, led much of the night, and in turn a P2 finish. Andrew, how are you feeling, first of all, on the P2 finish tonight? Battle between you and Epperhart much of the evening.
You want me to be 100% honest? I'm very disappointed. Mad at myself, mad at the strategy, and just you know, second is great and all, but I think we had the better car. I think we should have won the race, to be blunt with you.
Yeah, I was going to say, Daniel said prior to you jumping in here, he felt you were the class of the field tonight, and of course, one of the main wrenches in that was strategy calls. What was kind of the discussion plans on how you wanted to take the strategy tonight, knowing you only had 3 sets available in the pits at a track such as this?
Yeah, I worked it out. It was right about every 44 laps. I was going to take tires, and I stuck to it, and unfortunately it bit us. But, go on a little rant. I don't really like the tire limit. I know in real life you have 10-lap difference on tires. It's not a big deal, but you saw, I think they had, 7 lap more, and they went flying by me. So, I think the tire model needs a little work before we do the tire limits. But, that's what it is. It's the same for everybody, and I just messed it up. So I think that's really what cost us.
Hey, look on the bright side. Bristol's coming up. Your thoughts on Bristol, which is expected to be a madhouse, so to speak, especially with so many drivers needing some valuable points and or a win to get in for the round of 12?
Yeah, as much as I complain, I have a decent-sized gap. We can kind of go in there and just, try not to wreck and we'll move on. So I know a lot of people don't have that luxury. I'm really thankful to have it. And, I'm excited. It's a track where you have to use the brake, which we don't see that a lot with this car, especially the 1.5 miles. So that's kind of how I'm going to approach it. Just, take it easy, try to get a solid finish, don't do too much, and move on to the next round.
Anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, I got to say a big thanks to Sean Johansson. Last week, actually last couple weeks, my internet has been bad. I'm hoping I wasn't blinking tonight, but he let me set up right in his living room. So, without him, I don't even think, we'd be in a good spot like that. Just got to thank everybody on the team, Dave Washington, for everything he does. I wouldn't even be here without him. Low Line Race for everything with Road to Pro, and you guys for broadcasting, all the fans for watching, and all the drivers in this league. Love doing it every Monday.
Congratulations, second place finish tonight. We'll see how you do at the last Great Coliseum.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a good night.
You too. That's Andrew Ferdinage, P2 tonight. For Gary Sexton, a strong run tonight for the Elliott Sauer Esports machine. Gary now joins us in the broadcast booth as well. Gary, first things first, one of our biggest movers of the night, plus 17. How does it feel to be on the podium again?
It feels great. I mean, I definitely lately have been putting together some really good races, as long as I'm finishing them. Getting in the top 5. I think I had maybe a 5th last week, and 3rd at Daytona, and now a 3rd here. I knew I probably could get up into the top 5, top 10 for sure. From where I started, kind of just jumped in here with no practice tonight. But yeah, it feels great. I'm not sure what happened to Malik there on the last lap going in 3, but hey, I'll take it. Really the only downside to this whole thing is that I'm not in the playoffs right now because we've started off with 2 really good races. So we definitely would have been looking pretty heading into Bristol next week. But it is what it is, and we're still going after that first win.
First, we chalked it up towards Malik Ray things, especially since that checker flag was around the time of fixed racing officially on the service. But curious on how your strategy take was on things, because it looked like it was craziness, especially in the final few thirds of this race, to figure out, okay, when am I going to take tires? When am I going to stay out? Is this call going to work? And for the most part, it looked like it all came down to whoever was the smartest was likely getting the best track position for the final run like we've seen tonight.
Yeah, the track position was interesting, especially on the restarts. I know a lot of people like the bottom here, but I really like the top, and I got lucky on a lot of restarts getting the top, and I was able to pick up 3 or 4 that last run, because the whole race I would check my tires after the long runs, and my lefts were looking pretty good to a point where I would feel comfortable in a green-white checker situation taking 2. But with it being the playoffs and whatnot, I decided to throw 4 on it and just see what I could get out of it. And I, outside of Daniel and Andrew, I feel like I got as far forward as I possibly could. So, yeah, I mean, strategy was all over. I knew when those guys pitted up front, and then we stayed out, it would probably play into our favor if we had a caution. I just wish we got that caution about 10 to 15 laps later, just to right on the edge of where they would have had to keep their tires on the car, and then we could have came in and got freshies. But it all worked out, and we're sitting in the top 3.
Your take on Bristol next week?
I love it. I think I finished 5th there in the spring. I really like Bristol. I know I'm not going to be the fastest guy in the field, but if we can work the strategy a little bit to get ourselves out front. It's going to be really hard to get past me.
Anyone you want to thank for your third place finish tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. Elliott Sadler Esports, the whole team over there. We've been having a really, really, really great week on the official side of stuff. We got Garrett. Shout out to Garrett and Vicente. They're real close to making the Pro Series. So going into next week, it's going to be exciting to watch them. I know we're all putting in a lot of work to help get them into the Pro Series, and especially Elliott. Thank him for this opportunity every week. Thanks to Evan and everybody at RSR. This league has been awesome. I joined it at the beginning of the year as just something fun to do when I had time, and it ended up being incredible. So I look forward to my longevity here, and thank you guys for doing an awesome broadcast.
Congratulations on the top 3 tonight. We'll see how you do at the last Great Coliseum.
10-4.
10-4 indeed. That's Gary Sexton, P3 tonight, Evan.
A big thanks to our top 3 drivers for chatting with us, Daniel Epperhart, Andrew Ferdinage, and Gary Sexton. And as well, thanks for racing with us here on the Monday Nights at RSR. As we're now through 2 of the 3 races in this round of 16, and with Bristol up next. I mean, you heard it there. Maybe not the fastest car in the field, but Gary feels confident if he can get track position. That's a race where strategy could be a factor, where a little bit of chaos, restarts can come into play, a little bit like tonight. And maybe somebody, in this case, Daniel Epperhart, takes advantage, locks himself in. He was never really a concern, though, Justin. Looking at updated points, it is tight on that cut line. I mean, we talked about it, what it was coming into this evening, and let's take a look now. So, again, you don't want to be the bottom 4. Well, Daniel Epperhart, he's got to win. He's locked in, and you're looking at that bubble. So Daniel Scott is 2 points ahead of Joseph Tice. He's 4 points ahead of Kyle Kamer, and a bad night for Rhett McBride means that he is 13 points ahead of him. Jared Bogart still suspended. He won't be there. He's basically eliminated at this point. But I don't think any of those 3 drivers, Justin, need to win because it's a point per position. But if I'm McBride, I'm not feeling good. And if I'm Daniel Scott, I'm going to be sweating all race long.
Yeah, especially with some of the difficulties we've seen the past couple races. It's a must-win scenario, I think, absolutely, if you're McBride. And it's a decent track he's run at, but it's also one where it's so easy to have everyone essentially caught up in a big one. One broadcast, remember back, had every single driver involved, including Ray, involved in an incident. So as long as you can stay out of the trouble and, like Richmond, keep track position, it's going to be key. But the main difference is, we talked about some of the adjustments in the new build. It was talked about in the past that Richmond, you could take tires and be lightning quick. Bristol, track position was more valuable. It's sort of gone vice versa. Or if it comes down to something like we've seen tonight, if you've got tires, you're basically Superman. So it's going to be that kind of craziness I think we're going to expect to see at Bristol.
And with the 3 tire limit as well, of course, way less than what you see in NASCAR Cup Series racing, but granted our races are, a little bit less than half. It does force these drivers into a position where, again, you can't take tires when you normally would. You do have to make some decisions, and I think that bit of creativity can encourage some things as well. But, I mean, it is tight. I mean, even Michael Araya, technically not safe, but I think 10th through 15th is kind of the danger zone. Granted, I wanted to put Rhett McBride in the danger zone coming into this evening. He leaves in the danger zone because he gets involved in an incident that wasn't his fault. He gets trapped a lap down. Of course, Kyle Kamer, some of these other drivers, involved in some of the chaos, and they find themselves in that red box. That's not where you want to be exactly a week from now, and we're probably taking a look at the points after the round of 16, and we'll know the 12 drivers who will be moving on. But until next time, that's it for us here from Richmond Raceway. On behalf of our entire team at RaceSpot TV and at RealSimRacing for your broadcast crew tonight. For our producer downstairs, Hugo Luis, for Justin Prince, and myself, Evan Pasoko, I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Daniel Epperhart now as a 4-time winner, but most importantly, the first driver locked in to the round of 12. We'll be back in 1 week's time. It'll be September the 21st. It is a 9 o'clock Eastern time start from Bristol. That race and every race of the 2020 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series powered by Boosted Playoffs can be found exclusively right here on RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Richmond.